Have you ever agreed to something you didn't really believe in? Maybe you nodded along in a meeting, or said yes to a plan you secretly We like to think our choices are based on logic and our own independent thoughts. We believe agreement comes from understanding, from seeing the truth. But what if I told you that for most of human history, agreement wasn't about being right? It was about staying alive. Imagine the world tens of thousands of years ago. Long before laws, governments, or even written rules, our ancestors lived in small, tight-knit groups. In that world, survival was a team sport. Food was found and shared together. Dangers, from predators to rival groups, were faced together. Every major decision, from where to hunt to when to move camp, was made as one. Unity wasn't just a nice idea, it was the only thing that worked. So, what happened if you disagreed? It wasn't just a simple difference of opinion like it is today. To stand against the group, to argue against the consensus, was to risk something terrifying, being cast out, and for an early human, being alone meant almost certain death. Separation from the tribe meant no food, no protection, no one to watch your back. The wilderness was unforgiving. The lesson was brutal and clear. Agreement keeps you safe. Disagreement is danger. Our brains learned this lesson, and learned it well. It became a fundamental part of our wiring, a deep-seated survival instinct. This isn't just ancient history, it's a ghost that haunts us in our modern lives. Think about it, that knot in your stomach when you have to challenge your boss, that hesitation before you voice an unpopular opinion among friends, that physical discomfort you feel when you're the only one in the room who thinks differently. That feeling isn't a sign of weakness. It's not you being cowardly, it's a primal memory. It's your brain's ancient alarm system, screaming that you are putting yourself at risk of social separation. It is a biological echo from a time when fitting in was the most important thing you could do to survive. Our nervous system does not always know the difference between being kicked out of a friend group and being left alone in the savannah. To the brain, the threat of social rejection feels just as real. This hidden fear explains so much about human behavior. It's why silence often feels safer than resistance. It's why people can follow orders they know are wrong. Peer pressure isn't just a teenage problem. It's a human one. We're wired to seek harmony and avoid conflict because, for millennia, that's what kept our ancestors alive. Our desire for acceptance is not a flaw. It's a feature that was once incredibly successful. But here's the crucial part. We no longer live in that world. Today, our survival doesn't depend on absolute conformity. In fact, our progress as a society often depends on the exact opposite. It depends on brave individuals who are willing to feel that discomfort and speak up anyway. The ones who challenge the status quo, who ask the difficult questions, who dare to disagree. Innovation, justice, and positive change are all born from disagreement. Understanding the root of this fear is the first step to overcoming it. When you feel that anxiety rising before you speak your mind, recognize it for what it is, an echo from the past. It's a survival instinct that, in this modern context, might be holding you back. Your brain is trying to protect you based on an old rulebook, but you have the power to write new rules. So, the next time you hesitate, take a breath. Remind yourself that you are safe, that your thoughts have value, even if they are different. That true connection isn't about blind agreement, but about creating a space where different ideas can coexist and be respected. The instinct to agree started as a tool for survival, but our greatest strength now lies in our courage to think for ourselves. The human mind never forgets what once kept it alive, but it also has an incredible capacity to learn, adapt, and grow. The first topic is fear of rejection. Have you ever wondered why saying no can feel so incredibly difficult? Why do we often find ourselves agreeing with others, even when we secretly feel differently? It's not because you're weak or don't have your own opinions. The answer is actually hardwired into our brains, a relic from our ancient past. This deep-seated fear of rejection is one of the most powerful forces shaping our behavior, and today, we're going to explore exactly why that is. Let's travel back in time, way back, to when our ancestors lived in small, tight-knit groups. For early humans, survival was a team sport. Being part of a tribe meant everything. It meant protection from predators, access to food and resources, and the sharing of vital knowledge needed to navigate a dangerous world. If you were accepted, you had a chance to live. But if you were cast out, if you were rejected, it was essentially a death sentence. Alone, you were vulnerable, exposed, and unlikely to survive for long. Because of this constant life or death pressure, the human brain evolved a powerful survival mechanism. It learned to treat social rejection not just as an emotional inconvenience, but as an immediate, physical threat to our very existence. The pain of being excluded was a warning signal, just like the pain of touching fire. Your brain screamed, "Danger! Do whatever it takes to fit back in." This ancient programming is so deeply embedded that it still runs our social software today, often without us even realizing it. Modern science gives us a fascinating window into this phenomenon. Neuroscientists have used fMRI scans to see what happens inside our brains when we experience social rejection, and what they found is astonishing. The same regions of the brain that light up when we feel physical pain, like when you stub your toe or burn your hand, also become active when we re-excluded, criticized, or left out. Think about that for a moment. To your brain, the sting of being ignored by a friend can feel just as real as a physical injury. This is why rejection hurts so much. It's not just in your head. It's a genuine pain signal your brain is sending. This biological reality explains why we go to such great lengths to avoid it. So, how does this all connect to our tendency to agree with people? Well, every social interaction is a mini calculation for our survival-focused brain. When someone presents an idea or an opinion, especially in a group setting, our brain's ancient alarm system kicks in. It starts running a rapid-fire risk assessment. What happens if I disagree? Will they think I'm strange? Will they push me away? Will I be left out? Even if the stakes are as low as deciding where to get lunch, the fear of creating friction can trigger that primal fear of exclusion. This is where the power of agreement comes into play. Agreeing becomes a social shield. It's a low-effort, high-reward strategy to maintain harmony and ensure you remain part of the in-group. When you nod along, you're sending a subconscious signal that says, "I'm with you. I'm part of this team. You can trust me." It's a social lubricant that smooths over potential conflicts and reinforces your connection to the group. Your brain isn't necessarily concerned with objective truth in that moment. Its primary goal is social survival. It prioritizes connection over correctness. This response becomes even more powerful when you're in a new environment, like starting a new job or joining a new club. In these situations, your brain is on high alert. You don't know the social rules yet. So, the easiest way to avoid making a mistake and getting rejected is to observe and conform. You watch what others do, you listen to what they say, and you align your behavior accordingly. It's an often unconscious strategy to build rapport and secure your place within the new social structure. You might find yourself laughing at jokes you don't find funny or expressing enthusiasm for activities you don't really care about. This isn't you being fake. It's your brain working overtime to ensure you're accepted. Over time, this pattern of agreeing to avoid discomfort can become an automatic habit. It's like a muscle that gets stronger with use. The more you rely on agreement as a default response, the less you even notice you're doing it. You might start to believe you genuinely agree with everyone, or perhaps you just stop questioning it altogether. The feeling of ease that comes from conformity is rewarding, so your brain learns to seek it out. This is how the fear of rejection quietly and consistently shapes our daily choices, our relationships, and even our sense of self, often long before our logical, rational mind has a chance to weigh in. But here is the crucial part. Recognizing this pattern is the first step to breaking free from it. Understanding that your fear of rejection is a natural, biological response can be incredibly liberating. It means you're not flawed for feeling this way. Once you see the mechanism at work, you can start to make more conscious choices. You can learn to pause before you automatically agree. You can ask yourself, do I really feel this way? Or am I just trying to avoid friction? This doesn't mean you should start disagreeing with everyone just for the sake of it. Healthy relationships require compromise and harmony, but it does mean you can start to find a balance. You can learn to express your own thoughts and opinions in a way that is respectful, but also authentic. This is how we build genuine connections, not ones based on fear, but on mutual respect and understanding. It's about honoring your own perspective, while still valuing the connection you have with others. Let's think about the long-term consequences of constantly suppressing our own views. When we always agree to please others, we can start to lose our sense of identity. Our own voice gets quieter and quieter until we can barely hear it ourselves. This can lead to resentment, because we feel like we're not being true to who we are. It can also create a fragile sense of belonging. If people only like you because you agree with them, what happens when a real disagreement inevitably arises? True belonging comes from being accepted for who you are, including your unique perspectives and occasional disagreements. So, how can we start practicing healthy disagreement? Start small. Pick a low-stakes situation with someone you trust. Maybe it's a discussion about a movie or a book. Instead of just nodding along, try gently offering a different viewpoint. You could say something like, "That's an interesting point. I actually saw it a bit differently," or "I can see why you feel that way, but for me, ... The goal isn't to win an argument, but simply to practice voicing your authentic self and see that the world doesn't fall apart. You'll likely find that people respect you more for having your own mind. Another powerful tool is to reframe your thinking. Instead of seeing disagreement as a threat, try to see it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to learn something new, to see the world from another person's perspective, and to deepen your connection through a more honest exchange. When you approach disagreements with curiosity instead of fear, the entire dynamic changes. You move from a state of defense to a state of discovery. This shift in mindset can make a world of difference in how you navigate your social world. Remember, your brain's fear of rejection is an ancient echo from a time long past. It's a feature, not a bug. But it's one that might not always be serving you in the modern world. By understanding its origins, you can start to manage its influence. You can choose to listen to your own voice, to share your unique perspective, and to build connections that are strong enough to handle a little disagreement. True confidence comes not from everyone agreeing with you, but from knowing you can stand your ground respectfully and still be valued. It's about moving from a place of fear to a place of authenticity, and that is a skill that will serve you for a lifetime. The second topic is safety in agreement. Have you ever wondered why saying yes feels so much easier than saying no? Why going with the flow feels so comfortable, while resisting feels like swimming against a current? It's not just you, it's a deep-seated part of our human psychology. The simple act of agreement is a powerful source of psychological safety. Think about it. The moment two people agree, any tension in the air just vanishes. Conflict dissolves, disagreements fade, and our brains can finally relax. This feeling of relief is incredibly potent. Over millennia, our minds have learned to associate agreement with calm and resistance with stress. Let's travel back in time to our early human ancestors. For them, living in small, tight-knit groups, agreement wasn't just about being polite, it was a cornerstone of survival. When everyone was on the same page, the group was peaceful. Peace led to stability, and stability meant a better chance of finding food, defending against predators, and raising the next generation. It was the ultimate life or death scenario. So, the brain developed a clever reward system. It rewarded cooperative behavior like agreeing with the group by reducing anxiety and releasing feel-good chemicals. Over countless generations, this connection became hardwired. Agreement became synonymous with comfort and security. Fast forward to today, and that ancient programming is still running in the background. One of the biggest modern perks of agreement is how it lowers our sense of personal responsibility. When we follow the crowd, whether it's our friends, family, or colleagues, we feel less accountable for the final outcome. The weight of a decision feels much lighter when it's shared among many. This diffusion of responsibility dramatically reduces our mental load and, crucially, our fear of being blamed if things go wrong. It's a psychological safety net. This is why so many of us instinctively follow rules, social norms, and cultural expectations without a second thought. It just simplifies life. Agreement sweeps away the clutter of uncertainty. And if there's one thing the brain absolutely loves, it's certainty. Now, let's contrast this with the idea of freedom. True freedom, the kind where you forge your own path, is demanding. It requires immense effort. It means standing alone, making tough choices entirely on your own, and accepting the full weight of the consequences, good or bad, to the brain, which is wired to conserve energy and avoid risk. This looks incredibly dangerous. It's like walking a tightrope without a net. Agreement, on the other hand, promises that same feeling of safety without the struggle. It's the well-trodden path, illuminated and guarded. This is the fundamental reason why agreement so often wins out in our daily lives, not necessarily because it is the right or best choice, but because it feels overwhelmingly secure. But what happens when this need for security goes too far? When our desire to agree overrides our own judgment? This is where we see the power of social proof. We look to others to figure out how to act, what to believe, and what to value. If everyone around us is doing something, our brain tells us it must be the right thing to do. It's a mental shortcut. This phenomena explains fads, fashions, and even the spread of ideas. The more people who adopt a certain behavior, the more correct it seems, and the more pressure we feel to conform. We see this in investment bubbles, where people pour money into an asset just because everyone else is. We see it in online reviews, where a product with thousands of positive ratings feels like a guaranteed safe purchase. Our brain isn't critically analyzing the situation. It's outsourcing the decision-making process to the crowd. It's a classic case of safety in numbers. This drive to agree is so strong that it can even make us doubt our own senses. In a famous series of experiments by psychologist Solomon Asch, Participants were asked to look at a line and match it to one of 3 other lines. The task was incredibly simple. And when alone, people got it right, nearly 100% of the time. But then, Ash placed a single participant in a room with a group of actors who were instructed to give the same, obviously, wrong answer. What happened was astonishing. A huge number of participants caved to the group pressure. They went against the clear evidence of their own eyes and agreed with the group's incorrect answer. Why? They didn't want to be the lone The discomfort of standing out was more powerful than the certainty of their own perception. They chose psychological safety over objective truth. This shows just how deeply the fear of social exclusion is embedded in us. Being the odd one out feels threatening. A throwback to when being cast out of the tribe was a death sentence. So, how does this play out in our modern world, especially in places like the workplace? Think about brainstorming meetings. How many times have you seen a genuinely innovative idea get shot down, only for a safer, more conventional one to be chosen? This is often the agreement bias at play. Group harmony is prioritized over optimal People might hold back their true opinions to avoid creating conflict. This is the breeding ground for groupthink, where a team's desire for consensus leads them down a path of poor choices, because no one is willing to rock the boat and offer a dissenting view. The pressure to conform can stifle creativity and critical thinking, leading to missed opportunities and sometimes even disastrous outcomes. The very thing that makes us feel Safun questioning agreement can become the biggest risk of all. But is there a way to balance this innate need for agreement with the necessity of independent thought? Absolutely. The key is to cultivate an environment of psychological safety, where dissent is not only tolerated, but actively encouraged. Leaders can set the tone by asking for alternative viewpoints, rewarding those who challenge the status quo, and even appointing a devil's advocate whose specific role is to argue against the prevailing opinion. On a personal level, we can practice becoming more comfortable with discomfort. We can start by voicing small, low-stakes disagreements to build up our dissent muscle. We can also remind ourselves that a different opinion is not a personal attack. It's simply a different perspective, and diverse perspectives are what lead to stronger, more resilient solutions. When a group feels safe enough to disagree, that's when the real magic happens. It's a paradox. True security comes not from blind agreement, but from the freedom to disagree without fear. Ultimately, understanding our brain's love affair with agreement is the first step toward making more conscious choices. It's not about becoming a contrarian for the sake of it, but about recognizing when our desire for comfort might be leading us astray. The next time you find yourself nodding along with the group, take a brief moment to pause and ask yourself, do I truly agree with this, or do I just feel safer agreeing? Is this path the right one, or just the easiest one? By bringing this awareness to our interactions, we can reclaim our autonomy. We can learn to navigate the delicate dance between fitting in and standing for what we believe in. We can build relationships and communities that are not just harmonious, but also honest, innovative, and intelligent. And that is a form of safety that is far more profound and lasting than simple, easy agreement. The third topic is how the brain learns to agree. Have you ever wondered why it's often easier to just say yes, even when you secretly disagree? Why do we find ourselves nodding along in meetings or going with the flow in social situations, sometimes against our better judgment? The answer isn't about being weak-willed. It's deeply rooted in the very wiring of our brains. It tells a story that begins in our earliest years and shapes our behavior for the rest of our lives. Today, we are going to explore the fascinating neuroscience behind agreement and uncover why our brains are hardwired to obey. Think of the human brain as a magnificent, living sculpture, constantly being shaped and reshaped by our experiences. This process is driven by a simple but powerful principle: repetition. When we perform an action and it leads to a good outcome, our brain takes note. It strengthens the neural connections associated with that action, making it more likely we'll do it again. This is the fundamental mechanism of learning, whether it is mastering a new skill, forming a habit, or even learning how to interact with others. From the moment we're born, we are immersed in a world of social learning. As children, we quickly discover that agreeing with our parents, teachers, and other authority figures often brings rewards. Think about it. When you shared your toys, you were praised as a good kid. When you followed instructions, you received a smile, a pat on the head, or maybe even a treat. This positive reinforcement sends a clear signal to the developing brain. Agreement equals approval, acceptance, and safety. It's a warm, fuzzy feeling that our brain craves. On the flip side, what happens when we disagree? When we resist, challenge, or defy? Often, the consequences are less pleasant. We might get a stern look, a timeout, or a lecture. In the social playground of childhood, disagreement can lead to being left out of a game or being labeled as difficult. This negative feedback, this social punishment or isolation, also sends a powerful message to the brain. Resistance equals conflict, disapproval, and potential rejection. The brain, with its primary directive to keep us safe and connected to our tribe, learns to avoid these negative outcomes at all costs. Over thousands of these small, everyday interactions, a powerful connection is forged in our neural circuitry. The brain starts to associate the act of agreeing with the release of reward chemicals like dopamine, which makes us feel good. Conversely, the thought of disagreeing can trigger a mild stress response, releasing cortisol. Gradually, the pathways for agreement become like well-trodden highways in our minds, while the paths for dissent remain like overgrown, rarely used trails. Agreement starts to feel natural, easy, and automatic. It becomes our default setting. This is a classic case of what psychologists call conditioning. It's the process through which an external stimulus, like the expectation of others, becomes an internalized, automatic response. We don't consciously think, if I agree, I will be rewarded. Instead, the behavior becomes a habit. The external authority of our parents or teachers gets absorbed into our own internal system of self. Our brain learns to enforce the rules on its own. This is why, as adults, we often find ourselves following rules or social norms without even questioning them. We stop at a red light in the middle of the night, on an empty street. We say bless you when someone sneezes. We wait in line patiently. We're not actively thinking about the police officer who might give us a ticket, or the social awkwardness of not following the norm. Our brain is simply running a pre-programmed script. A script that says, this is the safe, correct thing to do. The brain is primarily concerned with whether the rule is logical or whether agreement is the right choice in a moral sense. Its main question is, does this feel safe? Does this align with the patterns that have previously led to reward and acceptance? Once a behavior like this becomes automatic, challenging, it feels incredibly uncomfortable. Think about a time you had to speak up against a popular opinion in a group. You might have felt your heart race, your palms sweat, or a knot in your stomach. That's your brain's alarm system going off. It's signaling that you are deviating from the safe, conditioned path. It's warning you of potential social risk. This physical discomfort is a powerful deterrent that pushes us back toward the path of least resistance. Agreement, resistance feels strange, awkward, and even threatening. Not because it's inherently wrong, but because it goes against years of conditioning. This powerful mechanism of learning and reinforcement is how social norms, traditions, and cultural values are passed down through generations. Each generation teaches the next, both explicitly and implicitly, which behaviors lead to acceptance and which lead to friction. The behaviors are taught, they're reinforced by the community, and they eventually become so normalized that they are taken for granted as just the way things are. The brain of a child learns to obey long before it develops the sophisticated cognitive tools for critical thinking and questioning authority. So, what does this all mean for us? Is free will an illusion? Are we all just robots programmed to agree? Not at all. Not at all. Understanding this process is the first step toward reclaiming our autonomy. It's not about rejecting all rules or becoming disagreeable for the sake of it. It's about developing self. The key is to learn to recognize that feeling of discomfort when you're about to disagree. Instead of immediately backing down, you can pause and ask yourself, is this feeling a genuine signal that I'm wrong? Or is it just my brain's old conditioning kicking in? By consciously interrogating our automatic responses, we can begin to create new neural pathways. We can start to exercise our disagreement muscle. It's like learning any new skill. The first few times you try it, it will feel awkward and difficult. Your brain will scream at you to retreat to the comfort of conformity. But with practice, it hits easy. Every time you voice a thoughtful, respectful disagreement, you are rewiring your brain. You are teaching it that dissent doesn't always lead to disaster. In fact, it can lead to better decisions, deeper understanding, and more authentic relationships. You're creating a new pattern, one where your own judgment and values are given a voice. This journey from automatic agreement to conscious choice is the essence of intellectual growth. It's about moving from a state where the brain simply asks, is it safe, to a state where it asks, is it right? Is it true? Is it what I genuinely believe? It is the process of evolving from a brain that primarily seeks to obey to a mind that dares to question. And by understanding the deep-seated reasons why agreement feels so easy, We empowered ourselves to choose when to go along and, more importantly, when to stand for what we truly think. The fourth topic is belonging versus truth. Have you ever found yourself in a room, nodding along to something you completely disagree with? Maybe it was at a family dinner, a work meeting, or even just hanging out with friends. You had a different opinion, a fact that contradicted the consensus, but you stayed silent. Why? It's not because you're weak or don't care about the truth. It's because your brain was wrestling with two of its most fundamental, ancient needs: the need for truth and the need for belonging. And in that moment, belonging won. This is a battle that plays out inside our heads every single day. On one side, we have the pursuit of truth. This is our logical, rational self that values facts, evidence, and intellectual honesty. It's the part of us that wants to correct misinformation, to stand up for what's right, and to be accurate. But on the other side, there's a much older, much more powerful drive, the need to belong. For our ancestors roaming the savannah, being part of a tribe wasn't just nice, it was a matter of life and death. Being accepted by the group meant protection from predators, shared resources, and a higher chance of survival. Being cast out, rejected, meant almost certain doom. Your brain hasn't forgotten this. Even now, in our modern world of cities and supermarkets, social rejection lights up the same areas of the brain as physical pain. To your subconscious, being ostracized feels like a genuine threat to your existence. So, when you're faced with a choice between speaking a truth that could cause conflict and staying silent to maintain harmony, your brain's ancient survival instincts often take over. It whispers, "Don't rock the boat. Don't risk getting kicked out. Just agree, it's safer." Let's break down this internal conflict. Voicing the truth, especially a challenging one, often leads to disagreement. Disagreement can easily escalate into conflict, and conflict carries the ultimate social risk. Rejection. Your brain, being the ultimate risk assessment machine, calculates the potential cost. Is being right in this moment worth the potential pain of being isolated? More often than not, the answer is no. The immediate, visceral fear of being alone outweighs the abstract satisfaction of being correct. This isn't just about avoiding a fight. It's about identity. The groups we belong to, our families, our friend circles, our political parties, our fan communities don't just offer safety, they offer a sense of self. They tell us who we are, what we believe, and how we should act. Our identity becomes intertwined with the group's identity. So when we challenge the group's consensus, it feels like we're not just challenging their beliefs, but our own identity as well. Losing your place in the group can feel like losing a part of yourself. It's an identity crisis in miniature. This is why conformity is such a powerful force. Think about the famous Asch conformity experiments from the 1950s. Participants were asked to look at a line and then match it to one of 3 other lines. It was an incredibly simple task. But here's the twist. Everyone else in the room was an actor, instructed to give the same wrong answer. What happened? A shocking number of participants went against the evidence of their own eyes and agreed with the group's incorrect answer. They knew it was wrong, but the social pressure to conform was so intense that they buckled. They chose belonging over truth. They didn't want to be the lone voice of dissent, the one person standing out from the crowd. This phenomena is all around us. It's why trends catch on, why office cultures develop, and why ideas can spread like wildfire through a community, whether they're true or not. Agreement becomes contagious. It's a social signal that says, "I'm one of you. I'm safe." People start to follow the crowd not because they've all independently come to the same conclusion, but because they don't want to be left behind. The fear of being the odd one out is a powerful motivator. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. When a few people in a group start expressing a certain opinion, others who secretly disagree might stay silent to avoid conflict. This silence is then misinterpreted as agreement, making the opinion seem even more popular than it actually is. This pressures even more people into silence, creating a spiral where a minority view can suddenly look like an overwhelming majority. It's called pluralistic ignorance situation, where most people in a group privately reject the norm, but they go along with it because they incorrectly assume that most other people accept it. Everyone is conforming to a belief that nobody actually holds. So, does this mean we're all just doomed to be mindless followers, sacrificing truth at the altar of social acceptance? Not necessarily. The first step to breaking this cycle is simply to be aware of it. Recognizing this internal tug-of-war between truth and belonging gives you power. When you feel that urge to stay silent, you can ask yourself, am I silent because I'm uncertain? Or am I silent because I'm afraid? Is this a situation where harmony is truly the most important thing? Or is it a truth that needs to be spoken? It's also about choosing your battles. Not every disagreement is worth a confrontation. Sometimes, letting a minor inaccuracy slide at a holiday dinner is the wisest course of action for maintaining family relationships. The goal isn't to become a contrarian who argues about everything. The goal is to become discerning. It's about building the courage to speak up when it truly matters on issues of justice, ethics, or critical decision. And here's a crucial insight. True belonging isn't about blind conformity. A group that demands you sacrifice your integrity and your perception of reality to be a member is a healthy group. The strongest, most resilient communities are not the ones where everyone agrees. They are the ones where people feel safe enough to disagree. They are built on a foundation of trust, where members know that they can voice a dissenting opinion without risking expulsion. This is what's known as psychological safety. In these environments, truth and belonging are no longer enemies. They can coexist. People can challenge ideas, debate openly, and arrive at better conclusions together because they're not afraid of being punished for it. Their belonging is not conditional on their agreement. How do we build these kinds of groups? It starts with us. It starts by being the person who, instead of shutting down a dissenting voice, says, "That's an interesting point. Tell me more." It's about rewarding courage, not conformity. The fifth topic is why agreement feels normal. Have you ever wondered why it's so much easier to agree with people than to disagree? It's not just you being polite. This tendency is a deeply ingrained part of our human story, a silent script that has been running for thousands of years. Think about it. Entire civilizations, from ancient empires to modern nations, were built on a foundation of obedience. It was the glue that held everything together. Rulers demanded it, societies enforced it, and survival often depended on it. This wasn't just a political strategy. It became woven into the fabric of our culture, our traditions, and even our family dynamics. We learn from a young age that agreeing makes things smoother. It gets us rewards, praise, and a sense of belonging. Disagreeing, on the other hand, often leads to conflict, punishment, or being cast out. This isn't a conscious choice we make every time. It's a behavior that's been reinforced over and over again for generations. So, when you find yourself nodding along in a meeting, even when you have doubts, you're not just being passive. You're replaying a pattern that is thousands of years old. The social pressure to conform is immense. We are social creatures, and our deepest instinct is to belong to the tribe. In our ancient past, being kicked out of the tribe was a death sentence. You couldn't survive alone against predators and the elements. So, our brains evolved to prioritize group harmony. We developed a powerful, almost automatic desire to fit in. This desire is so strong that it can often override our own judgment and personal beliefs. The famous Ash conformity experiments showed this perfectly. People would knowingly give a wrong answer just because everyone else in the group did. They'd rather be wrong with the crowd than right and alone. That's the power of social pressure, a force that silently shapes our choices every single day, making agreement feel like the safest, most natural path to take. This deep-seated need for agreement doesn't just come from outside social pressures. It's also hardwired into our brains. Our brains are incredible prediction machines, constantly trying to figure out what's safe and what's dangerous. And how does it do that? It relies heavily on familiarity. Things that are familiar are predictable, and what's predictable feels safe. Agreement is a highly familiar state. From childhood, we're taught to follow rules and listen to our elders. This creates a neural pathway that associates obedience with safety and comfort. When we agree, our brain gets a little hit of dopamine, the feel-good chemical, reinforcing that this is the correct, safe behavior. It's like walking a well-trodden path in a dense forest. You know where it leads, and you don't have to worry about hidden dangers. It's comfortable. On the other hand, questioning or disagreeing is like stepping off that path into the unknown wilderness. It's unfamiliar territory. Your brain immediately flags this as a potential risk. It doesn't know what will happen. Will you be rejected? Will you start an argument? Will you look foolish? This uncertainty triggers the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, which floods your body with stress hormones like cortisol. Your heart might beat faster. Your palms might get sweaty. This is the classic fight-or-flight response. Your brain is essentially screaming, danger, unfamiliar situation, retreat to safety. This is why voicing a dissenting opinion can feel so physically and emotionally draining. It's not just a social risk. Your brain perceives it as a genuine threat to your well-being. So, it's no surprise that we often default to agreement. It's the path of least resistance. both socially and neurologically. Our brains are simply trying to keep us safe by sticking to what they know. Over time, this constant reinforcement makes agreement feel completely natural, almost invisible. It stops feeling like a conscious choice and starts feeling like instinct. It's like breathing. You don't think about doing it, you just do. Italiano. People who are consistently agreeable don't feel like they're being controlled or manipulated. In fact, they often report feeling comfortable, secure, and at peace. This is because obedience has become so normalized in their minds that it's their default state. The mental effort required to challenge a status quo is immense, while the comfort of conformity is immediate and rewarding. Think about the countless social norms we follow without a second thought. We stand in line. We say please and thank you. We stop at red lights. We do unquestioned these things because they are part of a shared agreement that makes society function smoothly. But this invisible obedience can extend to more significant areas of our lives. We might accept a job we don't love, stay in a relationship that isn't fulfilling, or adopt political views without truly examining them, all because it's the easier, more comfortable path. The feeling isn't one of being trapped, it's one of stability. The alternative disruption, conflict, and uncertainty feels far more terrifying. This hidden power of obedience is that it masquerades as personal choice. We believe we are freely choosing our path, when in reality, we are often being guided by a deep, unconscious desire for the safety that comes with conformity. Breaking free from this requires a conscious effort to recognize these patterns and to become comfortable with the discomfort of the unfamiliar. It means learning to tolerate the brain's alarm bells and understanding that not all risks are real threats. So what's the hidden fear that really drives this powerful instinct for agreement? It's not simply about being weak or lacking a backbone. It goes much deeper than that. The real fear is rooted in a kind of collective, ancestral memory. It's a memory of a time, tens of thousands of years ago, when human survival was incredibly fragile. Intertwort unity wasn't just a nice idea. It was the absolute key to life. A lone human was vulnerable prey, but a group could hunt large animals, defend against predators, and care for the sick and young. In that context, disagreeing with the group leader or challenging the tribe's consensus could fracture that vital unity. It could lead to mistakes during a hunt or a breakdown in defense. Disagreement was a direct threat to the survival of every single person. Therefore, the individuals who were more cooperative, more agreeable, and more willing to follow the group were the ones who were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. Thank you so much for watching and exploring this idea with me. If this resonated with you, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more dives into the psychology of our daily lives. See you next time.